Hello, my name is Lizzie. I want to tell you about something that completely changed my life, my journey to becoming fluent in English. I wasn't born with perfect grammar. I didn't grow up in an English-speaking country. In fact, there was a time when I couldn't even speak one full sentence without getting nervous. But something inside me refused to give up. I knew I had to find a way to not just learn English, but to live it. And I did now. I want to show you how I became fluent, not with magic, but with simple steps, small changes, and real stories from my life. There was a time when the sound of my own voice in English made me feel small. I knew the words in my head. I could read books and understand TV shows, but when it came to speaking, actually opening my mouth, I froze. My lips wouldn't move. My voice would tremble. Even when I was alone, I felt embarrassed just hearing myself try. Was like something was blocking me from the inside, a tight knot of fear that wouldn't let go. That fear didn't come from nowhere. I still remember the first time I tried to speak English in front of someone. I was 14. We had an English-speaking visitor in our town, someone from Canada. I think my teacher asked me to say hello and introduce myself. My heart pounded like a drum. My face turned red. I stood there in front of this friendly-looking stranger, and all I managed to say was, "My name, Lizzie." No confidence, just panic. Everyone laughed not cruelly, but in that uncomfortable way that makes your heart sink. And from that day on, I believed this lie. I am not good at speaking English. For years, that belief followed me like a shadow. I studied English in school. I passed exams. I watched English movies with subtitles, but I never spoke. Not even one full conversation. I kept telling myself, one day I'll speak, when I'm better. But better never came, because I never gave myself the chance to try. It was a circle I couldn't escape. I was afraid to speak because I didn't speak. And I didn't speak because I was afraid. Everything changed one summer when I met Anna. Anna was from Brazil, and she had just moved to my city. We met at a weekend art workshop, something casual, just painting and music and snacks. The first thing I noticed about her was that she spoke English all the time. Not perfectly, not even fluently, but confidently. She made mistakes. She paused a lot. Sometimes she used the wrong word. But she kept talking, and people listened to her. They didn't laugh. They didn't judge. They leaned in, smiled, and responded. I watched her that entire afternoon, completely fascinated. I remember thinking, she's not afraid. How does she do that? Later, during a break, we sat beside each other and she turned to me and said, "You speak English too." I hesitated. I wanted to say, yes, a little, but my fear took over, and all I said was, understand, but no speak. Anna laughed kindly and said something I'll never forget. "So speak bad. It's okay. Bad speaking is better than no speaking." That sentence hit me like lightning. It wasn't perfect English, but the message was perfect. Bad speaking is better than no speaking. She wasn't waiting to be fluent. She was using the words she had now, and suddenly I saw it clearly. Fluency doesn't start with perfect grammar. It starts with courage. That moment marked a turning point. I didn't become fearless overnight, but I made a decision that day. I will stop being afraid to speak. Even if my voice shakes. Even if I make mistakes. Even if people look at me funny. I will open my mouth. So I started small. Really small. I gave myself daily speaking challenges, just 5 minutes a day, alone in my room. I'd describe what I was doing. Now I'm brushing my hair. It's sunny outside. I feel tired but happy. I didn't care about mistakes. I just wanted to hear myself speak. To get used to my own English voice. At first, it felt awkward. Like trying on clothes that didn't fit. But every day, it became easier. Then I moved to the next step. I started talking to my dog, Max, in English. He was a great listener. No judgment, no confusion, just wagging his tail. I'd tell him things like, "You are a good boy." "We are going for a walk. Let's go." It felt silly, but it helped me relax. Speaking English didn't have to be serious. It could be fun, light, even playful. After a few weeks, I took a bigger step. I joined an online language exchange app. My heart was racing the first time I accepted a voice call. The guy on the other end was from Italy. He was learning English too. I told him, sorry, my English not good. And he laughed and said, mine too. Let's be bad together. That broke the ice. We talked for 15 minutes. I made tons of mistakes. I paused a lot, but I did it. I spoke. From that day on, I started speaking with someone new every week. Not for hours, just 15 or 20 minutes. Sometimes, I practiced the same sentences again and again. What do you do? What did you eat today? What's your favorite movie? The more I repeated them, the more natural they felt. I also started recording myself. At first, I hated it. I couldn't stand the sound of my own voice, but I kept going. And slowly, my pronunciation improved. My tone became smoother. My pauses got shorter. And one day, I played back an old recording and realized I sounded better than I thought. But the real test came when I had to use English in real life. One afternoon, I was at a local bookstore that often had foreign tourists. A woman approached the front desk and asked, "Do you speak English?" The staff shook their heads. I saw her struggling, looking confused, and my heart started pounding. I felt that old fear rise up inside me. But then I remembered Aina's words. Bad speaking is better than no speaking. So I took a deep breath, walked over, and said, "Can I help you?" She smiled in relief. "Yes, thank you. I'm looking for books in English." I showed her the English section and even recommended a novel I had just finished reading. We talked for 5 minutes. I made a few mistakes, but she didn't care. She was just happy to find someone who could communicate. When she left, she said, "You speak English really well." I almost cried. Not because I believed her, but because for the first time, I felt seen. Not just as a learner, but as a speaker. After that day, my confidence exploded. I started offering help to tourists more often. I introduced myself to international students at my university. I joined a local English club that met every Sunday. And every time I spoke, I felt stronger. Not just in language but in spirit. I learned that fluency doesn't grow in silence. It grows in sound. In trying, in using your voice, even when it shakes. Especially when it shakes. I also learned something even deeper. People don't remember your grammar. They remember your energy, your smile, your kindness, your courage. Most of the people I spoke with didn't care if I said he go instead of he goes. What they cared about was connection. And when I focused on that, the fear melted away. Over time, I stopped preparing perfect sentences in my head. I stopped translating every word. I started trusting myself. Trusting that my voice mattered. That my message was enough, and that's how I stopped being afraid to speak. But now that I had found my voice, I had to strengthen it. I couldn't just speak once in a while. I needed to build real fluency, real strength, every single day. And that's when I entered the next stage of my journey. Once I stopped being afraid to speak, I realized something very important. Speaking was just one part of fluency. Yes, it gave me confidence. Yes, it helped me break that fear barrier. But if I wanted to truly grow, to sound more natural, to feel fluent in my bones, then I had to do more than just wait for conversations to happen. I had to train. I had to build my English muscles every single day. That idea came to me one morning while I was watching a fitness video. The instructor said, "You can't build strength by working out once a week. You have to show up every day, even if it's just a little." And that clicked in my brain. It's the same with English. You can't expect fluency from one big study session. You have to touch the language every day. Speak it, read it, hear it, feel it, even if it's only for 10 minutes. So I made a promise to myself. From today, English is not a subject, it's a lifestyle. I will build it like a muscle, and I will make it strong. I started small. The first thing I did was change the language on my phone and computer to English. It was a bit confusing at first, especially in settings or notifications, but it forced me to think in English all day long. Every time I opened an app or read a message, I was training my brain. It wasn't studying. It was living. Then I made a rule. No more passive English. Everything must be active. Before, I used to watch English movies or YouTube videos like background noise. But now, I started watching them with full attention. I kept a small notebook and wrote down phrases I liked. Not difficult words, just useful ones. Simple expressions. Natural sentences. Things like "I'll catch you later," or "that makes sense." I would replay those parts 3 or 4 times and repeat the line like an actor. That makes sense. That makes sense. I wasn't just listening, I was absorbing that. Notebook became my treasure. Every morning, I'd read a few sentences from it. I'd say them out loud while brushing my teeth. I'd imagine myself using them in real conversations. It felt silly sometimes, but it worked. Because little by little, those sentences started to come out naturally when I spoke. They became part of my brain's English system. Another powerful habit I developed was reading out loud. I didn't read big novels or heavy articles. I started with simple English stories, graded readers, children's books, even subtitles from TV shows. I'd read them slowly, clearly, focusing on pronunciation and rhythm. I wasn't trying to be perfect. I just wanted to make English feel comfortable in my mouth. I remember one specific moment about 3 weeks into this daily routine. I was sitting at the park with a short English story called A Rainy Day. I had read it several times already, but that day I read it out loud, sentence by sentence, like I was telling a friend. It was raining. The sky was gray. People were running with umbrellas. I felt something strange. Ease. The words didn't feel foreign anymore. They felt mine. That feeling motivated me even more, so I added one more activity to my daily practice: shadowing. It's when you listen to a native speaker and repeat what they say immediately after them, trying to copy their tone, speed, and pronunciation. I started with short clips from TED Talks and simple YouTube videos. I'd play 2 seconds, pause, repeat. Again and again. At first it felt impossible. My tongue tripped over words. My timing was off, but I kept going. I told myself, this is training. It's not supposed to be easy. After a few days, I noticed something amazing. My speaking became smoother. My pauses became shorter. My brain started connecting sounds and meaning faster. It was like I was tuning an instrument. My voice was becoming fluent, not just in words, but in rhythm. But I didn't stop there. I realized that fluency is not just about speaking beautifully, it's about understanding in real time. So I added a daily listening challenge. I picked one podcast episode every day, usually something short and interesting, like stories or interviews. I'd listen to it in the morning while walking or cleaning. Then, at night, I'd listen again, this time with a pen and paper. I'd write down what I remembered, or summarize what I learned, in English. Some days it was hard. Some days I wrote only 2 sentences. But it kept my brain working. And the best part, all of this became part of my routine. I didn't need to force myself. It wasn't boring study time anymore. It was part of my day, like brushing my teeth or eating lunch. But let me be honest with you. There were days I felt tired. Days I didn't want to practice. Days I doubted myself and thought, is this even working? But I reminded myself of something important. Muscles grow when you show up, not when you feel like it. So I kept showing up. To stay motivated, I used something I called the 1 English hour rule. Every day, I had to spend at least 1 full hour with English. It didn't matter how. It could be 20 minutes reading, 20 minutes listening, and 20 minutes speaking, or 10 minutes shadowing and 50 minutes watching a show actively. The format didn't matter. What mattered was consistency. I tracked this hour in a simple notebook. I made a calendar. Every time I completed a day, I drew a big check mark. Seeing those check marks pile up gave me such a deep sense of pride. Even if I didn't feel perfect, I felt disciplined. And that built real confidence. Another fun activity I did was creating my own English world at home. I put sticky notes on everything: mirror, fridge, laptop, door. I wrote sentences like "I am beautiful" or "let's go out." Every time I walked by, I read them out loud. My home became my classroom, my own little English country, and, slowly, my thoughts started changing too. I remember waking up one morning and realizing I had dreamed in English. Not a full story, not complicated sentences, just a small scene. Someone had said, "Are you coming?" And I replied, "Yeah, just a second." That's it, but it meant everything. Because it showed me that English wasn't something outside me anymore. It was growing inside me. My English muscle was getting stronger, day by day. I stopped relying on translations. I stopped pausing for words. I started feeling the language, living it. One time, at a cafe, a tourist asked me for directions. I gave her perfect instructions in English without even thinking. When she left, I smiled, not because I had spoken well, but because it had felt so natural. That's the power of daily practice. It turns effort into instinct. It turns English from a language you study into a language you live. And that's how I built my English muscles. But building strength wasn't enough. I needed flexibility too. I needed to think fast, speak freely, and express myself without pressure. And for that, I had to take the next step in my journey. After weeks of building my English muscles every day, speaking aloud, shadowing, listening deeply, reading with emotion, I noticed something changing inside me. Fluency wasn't just a skill I was developing. It was becoming part of how I saw the world. And that's when I realized the next step of my journey wasn't about study or practice anymore. It was about identity. Let me explain. One evening, I was sitting in my favorite spot near the window, journaling as usual. I had written my daily reflection in English, something I had been doing for a few months now. But that day, as I looked back at my earlier entries, I noticed something strange. The language didn't feel like something I had written in a foreign tongue. It felt mine. I didn't have to translate thoughts. I just expressed them. That was the moment I understood something powerful. Fluency isn't just speaking well. It's when English stops being a second language and starts being part of who you are. So I made a decision. From that day forward, I wouldn't just use English. I would live English. I would make it part of my lifestyle, my personality, my habits, my way of thinking and feeling. English wasn't just a tool. It was a voice, a new part of my soul that deserved space to grow. And so I started reshaping my life, one step at a time. The first thing I changed was how I talked to myself. You know those little moments during the day when you say things in your head like, "I forgot my keys," or "I need to do laundry." I began to say all of those things in English. At first, I had to force it. My brain wanted to default back to my native language. But I kept switching. "Don't forget the umbrella. Let's make some tea." Ook, that's annoying. The amazing thing is that it felt like I had a tiny English friend inside my head. This voice became my daily partner. It helped me process emotions, plan tasks, comment on things I saw. Over time, it became automatic. My inner voice was thinking in English, not just translating. And it was so freeing. Then I started adding more English into my real conversations, even with myself. I'd cook and narrate what I was doing. "Now I'm boiling the rice. Don't burn it again, Lizzie." I'd walk to the bus stop and describe the people around me in my mind. "That guy looks stressed. Maybe he's late for work." It wasn't just practice, it was connection. I was creating a life in English, not just moments. I also changed what I consumed. I had already been watching YouTube videos and reading easy books, but now, I took it further. I stopped following social media accounts in my native language and replaced them with English ones. Lifestyle vloggers, comedy clips, even memes. Yes, memes. They helped me learn humor, sarcasm, and culture. And that's when it hit me. Fluency isn't only about grammar. It's about understanding how people live, think, and joke in that language. I joined English-speaking communities online. Not just language forums, but real interest groups. I found a cozy book club on Reddit. I joined a cooking Facebook group that shared tips in English. I commented, replied, and participated not as a student, but as me. I stopped waiting to be good enough. I just jumped in. Of course, I made mistakes. Sometimes my comments were awkward. Sometimes I misunderstood slang. But guess what? No one laughed. In fact, people responded kindly. They helped me, corrected me gently, and welcomed me. That gave me so much motivation. I didn't feel like an outsider. I felt like part of something bigger. Around that time, I also discovered a powerful trick: giving myself English names and roles in daily life. It sounds silly, I know, but hear me out. One day, while journaling, I wrote, "What if Lizzie were an English speaker from birth? What would she sound like?" That idea fascinated me. So I created a new version of myself, English Lizzie. She loved to laugh at dry humor, watch British sitcoms, drink tea, and chat about life. I didn't pretend to be someone else. I just imagined my English personality. It made me feel freer to speak, to make mistakes, to be playful with the language. From then on, whenever I spoke English, I stepped into that mindset. I wasn't nervous Lizzie anymore. I was confident English Lizzie. It gave me permission to be expressive, to take risks, and to sound more natural. I even started recording short voice messages to myself, pretending I was sending them to a friend. Things like, "Hey, guess what happened today? I saw the funniest guy on the bus." It was fun, it was creative, and it was real practice. Another big shift happened when I started learning emotions in English. Before, when I was sad or angry or excited, I used my native language to express it even in my thoughts. But now, I challenged myself. I learned phrases like "I feel overwhelmed," or "that really touched my heart." I kept a list of emotional expressions and practiced them in my journal. This changed everything. Because fluency isn't just about talking about the weather or your job. It's about expressing your soul. And when I could do that in English, I felt truly fluent, not perfect, but real. Then came the most beautiful part of my journey, sharing my story with others. One day, I joined a virtual meetup for English learners. It was just a casual group chat, 6 or 7 people from around the world. We each introduced ourselves, and when it was my turn, I said, "Hi, I'm Lizzie. I've been learning English for a while now, and I'm trying to make it part of my everyday life." Everyone smiled. One guy from Turkey said, "You sound very natural." And that comment, it lit up my entire week, because that's when I knew I wasn't just learning English anymore. I was living it. I was building friendships, sharing jokes, talking about real things, hopes, fears, dreams in a language that once felt impossible. And, slowly, I saw how English had become woven into everything I do. When I open my laptop in the morning, I greet myself in English. When I get nervous, I calm myself with English words. When I laugh at a meme or cry at a story, it's in English. It's part of my music playlist. It's part of my morning routine. It's part of my thoughts, my voice, my identity. Fluency, I've learned, is not the finish line. It's a way of walking. And for me, walking in English every day has transformed how I see myself and the world. But my journey didn't end there. Because one final piece of the puzzle was still waiting. One final lesson I had to learn. A lesson that would bring everything together and carry me forward forever.